When we think of heroes in war, we often think of soldiers charging across battlefields. We think of brave men storming beaches, rescuing wounded friends, and standing their ground when everyone else is running away. History is filled with stories of warriors who became heroes through incredible acts of courage. Some gave their lives protecting their fellow soldiers. Some died fighting for their freedom. And many earned their place in history because of what they did on the battlefield. But the story I'm about to tell you is different. It happened during World War II, one of the darkest wars the world has ever known. Yet the hero of this story never carried a rifle. He never charged an enemy position. He never fired a single shot. And yet, what he did may have been one of the bravest acts of the entire war. This is the story of a man who became a hero without ever pulling a trigger. Welcome back to the Cries of the Martyrs, where we drop new episodes every Sunday night on YouTube and every Monday on Spotify. We are presented by the Battlefront.Studios. Please give us a follow on Spotify. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and leave us a comment who you want to hear next. But before we begin, I want to give a special shout out to one of our younger listeners. His name is Bobby. Bobby, this episode is for you, and I truly want to thank you for being a listener and supporter of the show. So Bobby and everyone else, I hope you enjoy it. Today's story is true, and it's the story of a man whose courage continues to inspire people more than 80 years later. His name was Maximilian Kolbe. So his name is Maximilian Kolbe. His name's going to be Max. Okay, that's what his name's going to be. His name is going to be Max Kolbe. So I'm either going to refer to him as Max or Kolbe. He was born in Poland in 1894. His family wasn't wealthy. His father worked hard to provide for his family, while his mother raised their children in their Christian faith. As a young boy, Max later recalled a moment that would shape the rest of his life. After getting into trouble one day, he prayed and asked what would become of him. Later, he said he experienced a vision. In it, the Virgin Mary held two crowns. One was white, symbolizing purity. The other was red, symbolizing martyrdom. She asked if he would accept them. Young Max answered, yes. Years later, people would look back and wonder if God was already preparing him for what was to come. At just 13 years old, Max left home to enter a Franciscan seminary. Please find that funny because I don't know if I said that right. Let's keep going. He studied hard. He became a priest, and he earned advanced degrees. But despite his intelligence, those who knew him remembered something else: his kindness, his gentleness, and his deep love for God. Over time, Father Kolbe helped build a ministry unlike anything Europe had seen. His monastery near Warsaw grew into the largest Catholic monastery in Europe. Hundreds of friars lived there and worked there. Printing presses ran day and night. Newspapers and magazines reached millions of people. Father Kolbe even embraced radio technology to spread the gospel. One young seminarian who lived with him later said, "I've met a few saintly people in my life, but Father Max Kolbe was the most saintly." Despite leading a massive ministry, Kolbe rarely walked through the monastery, encouraging students and young priests. He spoke in a soft voice because tuberculosis had damaged one of his lungs. Yet people remembered the impact he had on them. One friar later called him the heart and soul of the community. So this was just a quick introduction, getting us a little bit more familiar with Mr. Max here, Mr. Max Kolbe. And it just said that he was he was kind of quiet, but he spoke life into people, just a super nice guy, just very pure. And I promise you that that's going to come back up later. By 1939, dark clouds were gathering over Europe. Across the border, Adolf Hitler was preparing for war. But for many Polish families, life still felt normal. Families gathered around dinner tables, children played in the streets, church bells rang on Sunday mornings. Farmers worked in their fields, shopkeepers opened their stores. Life moved at an unusual pace. Then September 1st arrived. The Germans invaded Poland. Germany called its strategy Blitzkrieg, lightning war. And lightning is exactly what it felt like. The attack came so quickly and with such overwhelming force that entire regions struggled to react. Then on September 17th, the Soviet Union invaded from the east. Poland was trapped, attacked from both sides, and in just 5 weeks, Poland fell. 5 weeks. That's all it took. 5 weeks earlier, families were planning for their future. 5 weeks later, enemy soldiers filled the streets. 5 weeks later, refugees crowded the roads. 5 weeks later, everything had changed. So in 5 weeks, you go from complete peace and everything being normal to having another country coming in and taking over. It's crazy to think that way because for us in the United States is so big that you can't imagine the whole United States being taken over. But that's what this was for them. And the Germans were not nice. In fact, if it wasn't for Hitler basically going against Stalin, there is a very good chance that all of Europe would have ended up falling. All of Asia would have ended up falling. And more than likely, potentially the entire world falling to communism. And I'm only saying that because in many, many episodes we've done already, well, actually, this is our 7th episode, but communism has come up in just about every single episode. So think about the entire world being under communism and what that would look like for Christians. Now, let's keep going. As German forces spread across Poland, frightened refugees began arriving at Father Kolbe's monastery. Some arrived carrying what little they could save. Others arrived with almost nothing. Parents carried children. Children searched for parents. Many had no idea where they would sleep that night. Father Kolbe opened the gates. The monastery fed them, clothed them, and sheltered them. Nearly 3,000 refugees found safety there. About 1,500 were Jewish. To Kolbe, every person mattered, but the Nazis knew exactly who he was. A priest, a publisher, and a leader. A man influencing millions of Poles. His arrest was only a matter of time. Now again, the Jews were not liked by the Nazis. And so a lot of these people that came looking for shelter were Jewish people. So this is already, Father Kolbe already had a major target on his back because he was a religious leader. And the fact that he was hiding Jews, once they found this out, this made the Nazis very mad, and this was very against the law. So let's continue. We're going to talk about the arrest of Father Kolbe. Now I'm going to say that the Gestapo was like, they were kind of like the CIA of the United States, right? They were like a special force almost. And the Gestapo really was hunting down Jews. And the Gestapo was the one that arrived to arrest Father Kolbe. But I wanted to give you just a quick history of who the Gestapo was. But anyway, they had arrived. The Gestapo arrived as Father Kolbe was taken away. He turned to those around him and said, "Courage, my sons. Don't you see, we are leaving on a mission." Most people would have been terrified. Father Kolbe was encouraging everyone else. So a lot of people who were arrested during this time were sent to concentration camps. And there were a bunch of concentration camps all over Europe. But one of the big ones, and it later became a death camp, was Auschwitz. And just to let you know that 1.3 million people entered Auschwitz. 1.1 million were murdered. So the survival rate of going into Auschwitz, no matter who you were, was not good. And that is where Father Kolbe was heading. In 1941, Father Kolbe arrived at Auschwitz, prison number 16670. The Nazis no longer saw him as Father Max Kolbe. They no longer saw him as a priest. They no longer saw him as a human being. To them, he was simply a number. Again, we have seen this in so many. I mean, we even use this in like today's military. When you go into boot camp, they shave you down. Why? Because they're making you no one stands out. There's no individuality anymore. And that's what they were doing in these concentration camps. You became a number. You weren't even a human anymore. And that's what Father Kolbe was. Father Kolbe was no longer Father Kolbe. He was 16670. Auschwitz was a place designed to strip people of their dignity. Barbed wire stretched across the landscape. Guard towers watched from above. Prisoners slept packed together in overcrowded barracks. Food was so scarce. Disease spread quickly. Rats and lice were common. The cold was relentless. The work was exhausting. And more than 1 million people would eventually die there. Many people who entered those gates never left. Yet somehow, Father Kolbe remained different. He shared food. He prayed with prisoners. He encouraged those who were losing hope. Even after brutal beatings from guards, witnesses said he remained calm. In a letter to his mother, he wrote, "The good God is everywhere and provides for everything with love." Imagine writing those words from Auschwitz. Among the prisoners was a Polish sergeant named Franciszek, a soldier, a husband, and a father. He had fought bravely for Poland. He had survived battles, captured, interrogation, and ended up in Auschwitz. Like everyone else there, he simply hoped to see his family again. Again, death was all over the place here. And he was just a guy that was captured, fighting for Poland. Many POWs or prisoner of wars ended up in Auschwitz as well. Now, it's time for the decision. A prisoner escaped. The camp authorities were furious. As punishment, 10 men would be selected to die. One by one, the names were called. And one of those names were Franciszek's name. Immediately, he cried out, "My wife, my children." The entire camp froze. Everyone knew what that meant. So back then, when someone tried to escape, a lot of times they would also kill multiple other people, because that way it would discourage people. Like, if you're trying to escape and you get caught, well, you die. Well, that's not really going to keep people from trying to escape, because more than likely they're going to die anyway. What they were hoping to do was that people were good enough people to know if they escaped and then they were caught, that many other people would die. So it kept people from trying to escape. And this prisoner tried to escape and was caught. And for that, 10 other men were going to pay the price. And Frankisex yells out, "My wife, my children." Put yourself in his position. You have a wife and you have kids at home, and you're about to pay the price for something you didn't even do. And you yell that out. And then a prisoner steps forward. And it was Father Max Kolbe. The commander barked, "What does this Polish pig want?" And Kolbe calmly replied, "I am a Catholic priest. I would like to take his place. He has a wife and children." The commander agreed. In less than a minute, history changed. František would live, Father Kolbe would die. In the Bible it says there's no greater love than for someone to lay down his own life for a brother. And what's crazy about this is it doesn't say that Kolbe even knew who this other man was. But the moment he heard that he had a wife and children, he stepped up and was going to make an ultimate sacrifice for someone he probably didn't even know. I mean, really think about that for a second. Would you be willing to die for someone you didn't even know? And Father Kolbe didn't even hesitate. It said it was less than a minute. I think it was 55 seconds to be exact. But less than a minute from the time when František name was called to Father Kolbe taking his place. So this is how they died. They were sentenced to death, the 10 by starvation. Heavy metal doors slammed. The condemned men were led into an underground starvation bunker. The guards expected despair, screaming, anger. Instead, they heard prayers. A day passed, and the prisoners grew weaker. But witnesses said Father Kolbe continued encouraging the others. The hymns continued, the prayers continued. One guard later remarked, "This priest is a really great man. We have never seen anyone like him." After 2 weeks, Father Kolbe remained alive. The guards wanted the bunker emptied. A lethal injection was prepared. Witnesses said Kolbe calmly raised his arm, and on August 14th, 1941, Father Kolbe entered eternity. It said he lasted 2 weeks. Now remember, he was already starving. It wasn't like he had this head start and was able to collect up a bunch of fat before going down there. Not only was he was already starving, but he had such a good attitude, encouraging others. And it also says that he outlived the other men by multiple days. Father Max was a guy that gave up his life for a complete stranger. At the beginning of this episode, we talked about heroes in wars. Men who stormed beaches, men who charged into battles, men who carried rifles. Father Kolbe never fired a gun, yet when history gave him the opportunity to be brave, he stepped forward. Father Kolbe once wrote, "A single act of love makes the soul return to life." And in Auschwitz, he got to prove it. One act of love saved a father. One act of love inspired prisoners. One act of love continues inspiring people today. And perhaps that's why his story points us to Jesus. Because Jesus stepped forward for us. He took our place. He willingly gave his life so that we might live. Father Kolbe's voice has long since been silent. The prisoners who witnessed his sacrifice are almost all gone. The camps have faded into history. Yet more than 80 years later, we are still telling the story. Because their voices may be gone, their stories still cry out. Epilogue. The man Kolbe saved survived Auschwitz. He then survived another concentration camp. He survived a death march, and he also survived the war. For decades, he traveled the world telling people about the priest who took his place. In 1982, more than 40 years after Auschwitz, he stood in the crowd as Father Kolbe was declared a saint. The father who once cried, "My wife, my children," was there to witness the world honor the man who saved him. Years later, after Frankenstein died, a bishop described him with these words: "He was a living relic that remained after Father Maximilian." Hey, Bobby, I just want to say thank you again for listening. And thank you to everyone who continues joining us as we remember those who stood firm in their faith. If this story has impacted you, share it with someone else. Be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Again, we release new episodes every Sunday night on YouTube and every Monday morning on Spotify. You can also check out our other podcast, the Battlefront 511 podcast, hosted by me and Melissa. And thank you again for listening to the Cries of the Martyrs. And remember, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.